Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the English Globe. We are so happy to have you with us today. This podcast is made for English learners who want to understand the world while improving their language skills. Today, we have a very interesting and thought-provoking topic. Is the era of American dominance over? It's a question that many people are asking around the world today, from classrooms to governments, and even in daily conversations among students and professionals.
That's right, Adam. The topic we are going to discuss is not just about politics or power. It's about understanding how the world is changing. For decades, the United States of America has played a leading role in world affairs, from its economic strength and technological leadership to its cultural influence across movies, music, and education. But in recent years, we have seen new countries rising, global economies shifting, and international relationships transforming. So, it's a perfect time to explore what this all means.
Before we dive deeper into this fascinating topic, we would love to remind our dear listeners to please like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and share it with your friends who love learning English through world topics. It really helps us grow and continue creating more educational podcasts like this one. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where you are listening from. We always enjoy hearing from our global family of English learners.
Yes, please share your thoughts about today's topic in the comments too. We love reading your opinions and learning what you think about global issues. It's a great way to practice English writing and express your ideas. We want the English Globe to be not just a podcast, but a community where learners from every country can connect, share, and improve their language skills together while understanding the important topics that shape our world.
Now let's start exploring what we mean when we talk about American dominance. This phrase may sound a bit complex, but it simply refers to the period when the United States became the most powerful and influential country in the world. After World War II, America's economy was booming, its military was strong, and its industries were leading in innovation. Over time, the U.S. became not only a symbol of freedom and democracy, but also a global center of science, technology, culture, and education.
Exactly, Adam. Understanding this concept is important for every student of English and international affairs because language and global events are connected. When we study how nations rise and change, we also learn new words, phrases, and ideas that help us describe the modern world more clearly. For example, you will hear terms like superpower, hegemony, and global influence throughout this podcast. We'll explain all of them in simple, clear English so you can learn vocabulary while understanding history.
That's a great point, Julia. Our goal is to help our listeners not only understand what's happening in the world, but also to improve their ability to talk about complex, global issues in English. The reason today's question is so important is that it helps us think critically. Is one country still leading the world, or are we now entering a time when several countries share power? By studying this question, we can understand how the world order is changing and what it means for all of us as global citizens.
And when we talk about dominance, we don't mean control in a negative way. We mean influence, the ability of a nation to shape world decisions, culture, and technology. For much of the 20th century, the US was at the center of nearly everything, from global trade and education to innovation and diplomacy. But now, many experts believe that this dominance may be shifting as new countries rise, economies diversify, and global politics become more balanced and interconnected.
This question, is the era of American dominance over, helps us explore the world from many different angles. We can look at history, economics, technology, culture, and international cooperation. It's not about taking sides or making judgments. It's about understanding the facts and patterns that shape our planet. And most importantly, it's about learning the English language through meaningful and intelligent discussions that expand our knowledge of both vocabulary and the world itself.
That's why this episode is going to be both educational and fascinating. As we move forward, we'll look at how the US became such a powerful nation in the first place, what helped it maintain global leadership, and what challenges it faces today. We'll also explore the role of other rising powers and what the future of global influence might look like. So, stay with us till the end. And make sure to share this episode with your friends or classmates who love discussing world issues in English.
We truly appreciate each one of you for tuning in to the English Globe. Every listener matters to us, and your feedback helps us make this podcast even better. So please comment below. Where are you listening from today? Are you in Asia, Europe, Africa, or somewhere in the Americas? Let us know what you think about the topic and how you see the world changing. Together, we'll learn not only English, but also how to think globally and understand international relations in a more thoughtful way.
So, dear listeners, get ready for a journey through time and ideas. We will move from history to modern politics, from culture to economy, and from technology to the balance of power. This discussion will help you develop your English listening, vocabulary, and comprehension skills, while gaining real knowledge about how the world works. Let's begin this journey together and explore whether the era of American dominance is truly coming to an end, or if it's simply changing its form.
To understand whether the era of American dominance is ending, we first need to understand how it began. The story of America's rise to global power is one of the most remarkable in modern history. It is a story of hard work, innovation, and determination. In the early 20th century, the United States was already growing fast. Its factories were producing goods at an incredible rate, its cities were expanding, and its people were full of energy and ambition. But it was after World War II that America truly became a global leader.
That's right, Adam. After the end of World War II in 1945, much of Europe and Asia were left in ruins. The war had destroyed cities, industries, and economies across the world. But the United States, far from the main battlefields, had become stronger than ever before. Its economy was booming, its technology had advanced rapidly, and its industries were producing everything from cars to airplanes. America also had a large and skilled workforce, ready to rebuild not only its own future but also the global economy.
During this time, the U.S. played a major role in rebuilding Europe through what was called the Marshall Plan. This plan, named after Secretary of State George Marshall, provided billions of dollars in aid to help European countries recover from the destruction of the war. But this was not only about generosity, it was also a smart political move. By helping Europe recover, the U.S. strengthened its alliances, opened markets for American goods, and gained respect as a country that could lead and support others in times of crisis.
The post-war years were also when the American dollar began to rise as the world's most trusted currency. Under an international agreement known as the Bretton Woods system, the US dollar became the main currency used in global trade, replacing the British pound as the symbol of financial power. This gave the United States a unique advantage. It could influence world trade, global markets, and international finance through the strength of its currency. The dollar became a foundation of the global economy, and it still holds that position today.
At the same time, American innovation started to shape the future of technology and industry. The U.S. became a center of invention, where scientists and engineers developed new machines, medicines, and technologies that changed the world. From airplanes and computers to satellites and the internet, American creativity pushed humanity forward. The spirit of innovation became part of the national identity, a belief that new ideas could solve old problems and make life better for everyone. This spirit attracted people from around the world who wanted to study, work, and build their dreams in the United States.
And we can't forget about the cultural power that grew during this period. Hollywood movies, American music, and television shows began to spread across the world, creating a powerful image of American life. People everywhere were watching films, listening to jazz, rock, and pop music, and wearing blue jeans, symbols of freedom and modernity. Through culture, the United States shared its values of individualism, freedom of expression, and opportunity. This soft power, as we often call it in international relations, helped America win hearts and minds globally.
Education also became one of America's greatest strengths. Universities like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford attracted brilliant students and researchers from every corner of the world. These institutions became engines of knowledge, discovery, and leadership. By welcoming international students, the U.S. built connections with future leaders, scientists, and thinkers. Many of these students returned to their home countries inspired by the American spirit of innovation and democracy, spreading those values globally. Education became both a tool of learning and a bridge of diplomacy.
Let's also talk about the political vision that guided the United States during its rise. After World War II, American leaders believed that their country had a responsibility to promote peace, freedom, and democracy worldwide. The creation of international organizations like the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank reflected that vision. The US supported systems that encouraged cooperation, stability, and economic growth. While not everyone agreed with its methods, there is no doubt that this leadership shaped the post-war world order in deep and lasting ways.
Of course, American power was not only about economics or diplomacy, it was also about military strength. After 1945, the U.S. developed one of the most powerful militaries in human history, with advanced technology and a global network of allies. The formation of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, united the U.S. with many European countries to protect democracy and security. This alliance became a symbol of collective defense and a major reason for stability in Western Europe during the Cold War years that followed.
The Cold War was a major test of American influence. For nearly half a century, the United States and the Soviet Union competed for global leadership, not only in military power, but also in ideas, culture, and science. This competition led to space exploration, technological innovation, and new global institutions. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, it left the United States as the only remaining superpower. That period is often called the unipolar moment, a time when American influence reached almost every corner of the world, shaping economics, politics, and even entertainment.
The rise of American dominance was not just the result of military or economic strength. It was also built on ideals, the belief in democracy, freedom, and opportunity. These values attracted millions of people who saw the United States as a land where anyone could achieve success through hard work. Immigrants brought new energy, ideas, and creativity to the country, helping it grow even stronger. This combination of values, innovation, and opportunity made the U.S. not only powerful, but also admired and respected across much of the world.
But as we look at this story of success, it's also important to understand that global leadership comes with responsibility. The United States has often faced difficult choices in its international role, balancing national interests with global cooperation and managing challenges from war to economic crises. Yet through it all, the US has remained one of the most influential forces in shaping the modern world. Understanding this history helps us see why today's question, whether the era of American dominance is ending, is so complex and fascinating.
Exactly, Julia. The rise of American power tells us a lot about what leadership means in a globalized world. It shows how a country can combine economic strength, cultural influence, and technological innovation to shape history. But it also reminds us that power is never permanent. It must be renewed through education, cooperation, and creativity. In the next part of our discussion, we'll explore how this dominance changed after the Cold War and how new global players began to emerge on the world stage. When the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, It marked the end of the Cold War, a long and tense period that had divided the world into two major blocks for nearly half a century. With the fall of the Soviet system, there was no longer another superpower that could challenge the United States on a global level. For the first time in modern history, the world entered what many scholars called a unipolar moment, meaning that only one country, the United States, held the greatest military, economic, and cultural influence across the entire planet.
That's a very important point, Adam. During the 1990s, the United States stood at the center of almost every major international decision. Its economy was strong, its technology was advancing faster than ever before, and its culture continued to inspire people everywhere. American movies filled cinemas around the world, its music played on every radio, and the English language became the global language of communication, business, and education. In many ways, it seemed as if the world was entering an age completely shaped by American values, innovation, and leadership.
Yes, Julia, and we can also see that this period of dominance was supported by a powerful combination of technology and globalization. American companies like Microsoft, Apple, and IBM were transforming how the world used computers and information. The invention and spread of the Internet, which started largely as a U.S. project, connected people from every country and allowed the exchange of ideas at a speed never seen before. Many of the websites, software systems, and digital tools that shaped the modern Internet came from the U.S., which helped the country strengthen its technological leadership.
And let's not forget how American foreign policy also adapted during this time. With no major rival power to balance against, the US took on the role of what some called the world's policeman. It became deeply involved in international issues, from peacekeeping operations and humanitarian missions to economic support and trade agreements. The US military was seen as a global force for stability, and many nations relied on American power to prevent regional conflicts or to maintain peace. For better or worse, this leadership made the US central to nearly every global event of the 1990s and early 2000s.
Exactly. And this influence wasn't just about military might, it was also about economics. In the 1990s, the American economy experienced one of its most successful decades. The rise of the information technology sector, the rapid growth of global trade, and the spread of multinational corporations helped make the U.S. not just a national power, but a global one. The stock market was booming, unemployment was low, and American brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Nike, and Disney became symbols of modern life across continents. The American dream, in many ways, became a global dream.
The cultural impact of the United States during this period was enormous. American films, television, and fashion influenced how people dressed, spoke, and even thought. Hollywood became not just an entertainment center, but also a global storytelling machine that spread images of freedom, ambition, and success. Meanwhile, the English language spread even faster, becoming the dominant language of science, diplomacy, and technology. For millions of learners worldwide, learning English was no longer just an academic choice. It became a path to opportunity and connection with the wider world.
At the same time, U.S. universities continued to attract the brightest minds from across the globe. Young people dreamed of studying at Harvard, Stanford, or MIT, where they could learn from world-class professors and participate in groundbreaking research. Many of these students stayed in America to work in its growing industries, while others returned home to apply their knowledge, carrying with them not only technical skills, but also American cultural values. This educational influence helped extend U.S. soft power, creating generations of leaders who had personal and professional ties to America.
However, even during this golden era, there were signs that change might be coming. As technology connected the world, it also empowered other countries to grow faster and compete more effectively. China began its path of rapid industrialization and economic reform. The European Union expanded and became a major economic power. India opened its markets and started developing its technology sector. These shifts were slow but steady, and they showed that the world was gradually becoming more balanced, even as the United States remained at the top.
That's true, Julia. Power in the modern world is not only about weapons or money, it's also about influence, knowledge, and cooperation. During the unipolar moment, the United States used its influence to shape international organizations like the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, and NATO. It promoted globalization, believing that open markets and free trade would create a more stable and prosperous world. For a while, this vision seemed to work. Many countries enjoyed economic growth, and global poverty levels began to decline. Yet globalization also brought new challenges and inequalities.
Exactly, Adam. As the world became more connected, some regions developed faster than others, and not everyone benefited equally from globalization. Many people began to question whether the global system, largely shaped by American policies and corporations, was fair for everyone. Still, throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, the United States remained the dominant actor in shaping global politics and the global economy. Its leadership was recognized even by those who sometimes disagreed with its actions. No other country came close to matching its overall power.
When we look at this era in history, we can say that the United States reached the height of its global influence. It was a time when American culture defined popular trends, American companies led technological innovation, and the American dollar guided global trade. It was also a time of optimism, when many believed that democracy and capitalism would naturally spread around the world. The Internet revolution, the growing global economy, and the vision of a connected planet all seemed to confirm that the world was living under what some called Pax Americana, the American peace.
But as every student of history knows, no period of dominance lasts forever. The early 21st century brought new challenges: terrorism, financial crises, environmental issues, and the rapid rise of new powers that began to change the global landscape. The unipolar moment, though extraordinary, was not permanent. It opened the door for a new era in which the world would no longer revolve around one single power, but would instead begin to share influence among many. And that's exactly what we will explore in the next part of our podcast.
Yes, Julia. The story of American dominance does not end with success alone. It's also a story of adaptation, how a great power responds to change, competition, and transformation. The next chapter in our discussion will focus on those emerging powers that started to challenge U.S. leadership in politics, trade, and technology. These new players reshaped the world map of influence and began to create what we now call a multipolar world. So, stay with us, dear listeners, as we continue this global journey of understanding and learning. As we move forward in our discussion, it's important to understand that the world never stands still. Even during the period when the United States was clearly the dominant global power, change was already happening quietly in the background. New nations were developing their economies, investing in education, and building strong industries. The 21st century introduced what many experts call a multipolar world, a world in which several countries share global influence, instead of one nation leading alone. This shift began slowly, but has now become one of the defining features of our modern era.
That's very true, Adam. One of the most significant changes in the global balance of power came from Asia, especially from China. Over the past few decades, China has experienced extraordinary economic growth. From the 1980s onward, it opened its markets, encouraged manufacturing, and attracted foreign investment. Millions of people moved from rural villages to cities, helping the country become the world's factory. By the 2010s, China had become the second largest economy on Earth, and in some ways, it began challenging the US in trade, technology, and global influence.
Yes, Julia. China's transformation is one of the greatest economic stories in human history. In just one generation, it moved from poverty to global power. Factories across the country began producing everything from electronics and clothes to cars and advanced machinery. As a result, countries all over the world started depending on Chinese goods. This new economic power allowed China to expand its influence through large infrastructure projects, trade agreements, and investments in developing nations. It became a key player not only in Asia, but also in Africa, Europe, and Latin America.
And what's interesting for our listeners to note is that China's rise did not only come through trade and manufacturing. It also invested heavily in technology, research, and innovation. Companies like Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent became international names. China's focus on artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and digital payment systems has shown that it is no longer just a manufacturing country. It is now a technology leader as well. This growth has created both cooperation and competition between China and the United States, shaping one of the most important relationships in the modern world.
That's a very good point, Julia. And alongside China, other countries have also started playing bigger roles on the world stage. India, for example, has become a rising power in technology, education, and global business. With a young population, strong universities, and one of the largest English-speaking communities in the world, India has become a center for information technology and innovation. It has a fast-growing economy and an expanding influence in global discussions about climate change, trade, and international security.
Exactly, Adam. India's rise is important because it shows how demographic strength, meaning a large and young population, can be a great advantage. Its technology sector has become famous for software development, and many major global companies rely on Indian engineers and IT experts. At the same time, India is also developing its manufacturing base and investing in renewable energy. As the world becomes more connected, India's democratic system, growing economy, and cultural influence give it a unique position in shaping the future of global politics and business.
In addition to Asia's rise, we can't forget about the European Union. While Europe once relied heavily on American leadership after World War II, the European Union has slowly built its own identity as a major global actor. The EU has one of the largest economies in the world, a common currency, the euro, and a strong commitment to human rights, diplomacy, and sustainable development. It promotes cooperation and dialogue, often playing the role of a mediator in global issues. Europe's influence may be quieter than America's, but it is built on stability, culture, and diplomacy.
Yes, and the EU's focus on soft power, the power of ideas, culture, and cooperation, makes it very different from traditional forms of dominance. European countries invest heavily in education, renewable energy, healthcare, and social welfare. They also work together to address global challenges such as climate change, migration, and digital regulation. While Europe doesn't rely on military power as much as the United States or China, it has become a model for regional integration, showing how countries can unite peacefully to achieve common goals.
Besides these major players, other regions are also rising. In Latin America, countries like Brazil and Mexico are gaining influence in trade and agriculture. In the Middle East, countries such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are using their oil wealth to invest in technology, tourism, and education, preparing for a future beyond fossil fuels. In Africa, nations like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa are becoming regional leaders with young populations and fast-growing economies. These changes show that power is spreading more evenly across the world.
And that's what makes the 21st century so fascinating. Unlike in the past, when one or two countries controlled most global decisions, today we see many nations sharing power in different areas. Some countries lead in technology, others in manufacturing, energy, or culture. This diversity makes the world more complex but also more connected. For English learners, it's a great opportunity to study how international relations evolve because it helps us understand not just politics but also global communication and cooperation.
Let's also talk about another major development: the shift in global trade. Many countries are now trading directly with one another, rather than relying only on the US dollar or Western systems. Regional trade agreements, like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership in Asia and the African Continental Free Trade Area, are examples of how countries are trying to strengthen their own connections. This doesn't mean the end of American influence, but it does show that the world is becoming more balanced and independent in its economic decisions.
That's a really good observation, Adam. We are witnessing a kind of redistribution of power. America is still a major global leader, but it now has to share influence with other countries that are growing in confidence and capability. This is what we call multipolarity. When several powers coexist and influence world affairs together, it can lead to competition, but it can also create more opportunities for cooperation. It's a reminder that in today's world, no nation can solve global problems alone. Whether it's climate change, pandemics, or technology, collective effort is essential.
Exactly, Julia. And this shift toward a multipolar world doesn't mean the end of the American era. It simply means that the US is now part of a larger group of powerful nations. It remains a leader in technology, culture, and innovation, but it must adapt to new realities where influence is shared. Understanding this transition helps us think more critically about how the future of the world will look. For English learners, this topic is especially valuable because it connects language learning with awareness of global issues and modern history.
The rise of new global players reminds us that power is not fixed. It evolves. Each generation brings new leaders, new technologies, and new ways of thinking. Countries that were once considered developing are now leading in research and innovation. The digital age has made it possible for smaller nations to have global influence through creativity, media, and entrepreneurship. This means that the idea of dominance itself is changing, from controlling others to collaborating with others to solve shared problems and build a better world.
And that's a beautiful message to remember, Julia. Global leadership is no longer just about strength or wealth. It's about cooperation, education, and responsibility. The future belongs to nations that can work together and adapt to change. In the next section of our podcast, we'll explore how these global shifts have affected economics, especially the role of the US dollar and the growing trend of countries trying to diversify their trade systems. It's a fascinating and important part of the story of modern power. When we talk about American power in the world, one of the most important pieces of the story is the US dollar. For decades, the strength of the dollar has not only represented the American economy, but has also supported its global influence. After World War II, the dollar became the world's main reserve currency, meaning that countries around the globe began using it to trade goods, store value, and measure economic stability. This gave the United States a unique position in international finance, allowing it to play a leading role in shaping global trade systems.
That's right, Adam. The idea of the dollar as a reserve currency means that many central banks, the main financial institutions of countries, hold US dollars as part of their foreign reserves. These reserves act as a kind of financial safety net. If a country faces an economic crisis or needs to pay for imports, it can use its dollar reserves to stabilize its currency or buy essential goods like oil, machinery, or food. Because the dollar is so widely trusted, it has become the foundation of the global financial system for over 70 years.
Exactly, Julia. One major reason for this dominance is that most international trade, especially in energy, like oil and gas, has traditionally been priced in dollars. For example, when a country like Japan buys oil from Saudi Arabia, that transaction is usually done in US dollars. This system, sometimes called the petrodollar system, ensures a steady global demand for dollars. It helps the US maintain strong economic power because other countries always need to hold dollars for trade, which in turn strengthens the American financial markets.
But, Adam, in recent years, we have started hearing a lot about a new trend, something economists call de-dollarization. This term may sound complex, but in simple words, it means that some countries are trying to reduce their dependence on the US dollar in international trade. Instead, they are using their own national currencies, or alternative ones, like the euro, the Chinese yuan, or even regional agreements where two countries directly exchange goods using their own money. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it signals a change in how nations view global finance.
That's a great point, Julia. De-dollarization has many reasons behind it. Some countries want to protect themselves from global financial risks, such as fluctuations in the dollar's value, while others prefer to have more control over their trade policies. In addition, when international sanctions or trade restrictions affect certain nations, they often try to create alternative systems that rely less on the dollar. For English learners, this is an important topic because it teaches how economics and politics often influence each other at the international level.
Yes, and understanding these global shifts also helps us learn important economic vocabulary. For example, the term trade balance describes the difference between a country's exports, what it sells to other countries, and imports, what it buys from others. If a country exports more than it imports, it has a trade surplus. If it imports more than it exports, it has a trade deficit. The US has often had a trade deficit because Americans buy many foreign goods, while other nations accumulate dollars from selling to the American market. This is one reason the dollar remains widely used.
That's a very clear explanation, Julia. Another key term we should explain is foreign reserves. These are assets that countries keep in their central banks, usually in foreign currencies like the US dollar, the euro, or gold. These reserves are essential for maintaining financial stability, supporting the value of national currencies, and paying for imports. The fact that most reserves are held in dollars means that global finance has long been tied to the strength and credibility of the U.S. economy. When confidence in the dollar is high, the whole world feels more stable.
But now, as global trade expands and technology changes the way countries do business, we see new patterns emerging. Some countries are signing trade agreements that allow them to pay in their own currencies. For example, certain nations are trading energy, machinery, and food using local currencies instead of the dollar. This trend is still small compared to the global size of the dollar market, but it reflects a growing desire among nations to diversify their financial systems and have more independence in their economic decisions.
And while some people see this as a threat to the dollar's dominance, others view it as a natural development of the global economy. The world is becoming more connected, and countries want more options to manage their trade and investments. It doesn't mean that the dollar will disappear or lose its power completely. Instead, it might become one of several major currencies in a more balanced system. The dollar still remains strong because it is trusted, widely used, and backed by the world's largest and most stable financial markets.
That's true, Adam. Another interesting aspect of this discussion is how technology is transforming global finance. The rise of digital currencies, electronic payments, and even discussions about central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are changing how money moves across borders. If more countries adopt digital systems for trade and banking, we might see even faster diversification in global transactions. However, most experts believe that the dollar will remain a key part of this digital transformation, simply because it has a long history of trust and global acceptance.
And it's also important for our listeners to remember that the strength of the dollar is not just about economics, it's also about confidence. People, businesses, and governments use the dollar because they trust the United States' financial institutions, laws, and economic management. This trust has been built over many decades. Even when there are global crises, like recessions or political tensions, investors often move their money into the dollar because they see it as a safe place to store value. That's what economists call a safe haven currency.
Exactly, Adam. But if we look at the long term, global finance might become more balanced. The euro has become a strong alternative, and the Chinese yuan is gaining ground, especially in Asia and Africa. Some countries are even experimenting with trade in regional currencies or through digital platforms. Still, the dollar's central role continues, mainly because of the size of US financial markets, the stability of its economy, and the influence of American companies in global business. These factors make the dollar deeply rooted in the international system.
So, to summarize this complex topic for our listeners, the world's financial landscape is evolving, but the US dollar remains a cornerstone of global trade and investment. The trend of de-dollarization shows that countries are exploring new ways to manage their economies, but it doesn't mean the end of American financial influence. Instead, it may mark the beginning of a more flexible, multi-currency world, where power and trust are shared among several strong economies, all connected through global cooperation and trade.
That's a wonderful conclusion, Adam. And for our English learners, this section teaches more than just vocabulary. It shows how economic power and language are connected, how words like reserves, trade balance, de-dollarization, and currency stability represent real systems that shape people's lives. Understanding these ideas helps you think critically about global events while improving your ability to communicate in English about serious, complex topics. This is what makes learning through the English globe so valuable. Knowledge and language together. When we look at global power and influence today, one area where the United States continues to shine brightly is technology and innovation. Despite the rise of competition from Asia and Europe, American companies such as Google, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, and many others remain at the heart of the modern digital world. These companies not only design products and services used by billions of people, but they also drive the direction of global innovation, shaping how we communicate, work, study, and even think about the future.
That's very true, Julia. The United States has built an ecosystem that supports creativity and invention like almost no other place on Earth. From Silicon Valley in California to research hubs across Boston, Austin, and Seattle, America's environment for innovation is still one of its greatest strengths. The term innovation means creating something new or improving what already exists. In technology, this could mean designing a new kind of smartphone, building software that helps businesses work faster, or developing renewable energy systems that protect the planet.
Exactly, Adam. If we look at companies like Apple and Google, they have transformed the world in ways that were hard to imagine just a few decades ago. Apple introduced the iPhone, which revolutionized how people connect, learn, and live. Google changed the way we access information, making knowledge available to almost everyone with an internet connection. Microsoft's software powers computers around the world, and Tesla has become a symbol of the clean energy future with electric cars and advanced battery technology. These achievements show how innovation drives progress.
And what's fascinating, Julia, is that behind all these companies, there is a culture that celebrates risk-taking, curiosity, and what we call entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship means the ability to start and grow a new business from an idea, often taking risks and trying new approaches. The U.S. education system, business laws, and investment culture encourage this spirit. From university research labs to small startup offices, people are free to experiment, fail, and try again. And that's how many of the most successful ideas in the world are born.
That's a wonderful point, Adam. In fact, many of the world's most innovative products started in American universities and research centers. Universities like Stanford, MIT, Harvard, and Berkeley have long been the birthplace of new technologies, from computer chips to social media networks. This strong link between education and industry is one of America's greatest advantages. Students are not only learning theory, they're encouraged to think practically, solve real problems, and build new things. That's how creativity becomes part of daily life in American culture.
Yes, and another reason for America's technological leadership is the system of patents, legal protections for inventions. When a person or company creates something new, they can apply for a patent, which gives them the exclusive right to produce or sell that invention for a period of time. This encourages innovation because inventors know that their hard work will be protected by law. The U.S. patent system has existed for more than 2 centuries, and it has helped countless entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life while creating millions of jobs.
Exactly. And when we look at the global technology landscape, we can see that while other countries are making rapid progress, especially in fields like artificial intelligence, robotics, and green energy, the United States still leads in the research, investment, and creativity that drive innovation. America's universities and companies publish more scientific papers, file more patents, and attract more venture capital, the funding that helps startups grow. This combination of education, finance, and freedom creates a powerful engine of progress.
That's a great observation, Julia. If we take artificial intelligence, for example, one of the most talked about technologies today, American companies and researchers remain at the forefront. They design advanced algorithms, build large-scale data systems, and set the global standards for AI development. Meanwhile, collaboration between American and international scientists has created an open exchange of knowledge that benefits everyone. This spirit of cooperation shows that innovation is not just national, it's global, and the U.S. plays a leading role in keeping that spirit alive.
Yes, and one important reason for this continued success is America's open market system. The United States has a long tradition of allowing competition and rewarding new ideas. When a new company creates a better product or service, it can quickly grow, attract investment, and reach global audiences. This openness encourages constant improvement. It's a living example of how a free market, where businesses compete fairly, can motivate creativity and reward hard work. This environment has made the US a magnet for innovators from around the world.
That's absolutely right. Many of the brightest minds in science, engineering, and computer technology come to the United States to study or work, because they see it as a place where ideas can grow freely. Immigrants have played a major role in building some of the biggest American companies. For example, the founders of Google and Tesla were immigrants, and many scientists working in Silicon Valley come from countries across Asia, Europe, and Africa. This diversity of thought and background gives America an enormous advantage in creativity and problem-solving.
Another key factor, Adam, is that innovation in America is not only about profit. It's also about solving problems that affect humanity. Many American companies invest in clean energy, medical research, and education technology. They focus on long-term goals such as fighting climate change, curing diseases, and improving access to information. This sense of purpose inspires young people to study science and technology, knowing they can make a difference. It shows how innovation is not only about creating wealth, but also about creating a better future for all.
And this connection between education, creativity, and progress is what keeps the U.S. so strong in the technology sector. Schools and universities encourage students to think independently, question assumptions, and imagine new possibilities. This mindset prepares people to adapt quickly to change, which is crucial in the modern digital era. In many ways, this culture of curiosity is America's most powerful resource, one that keeps its leadership in innovation alive, even as global competition becomes stronger every year.
That's beautifully said, Adam. So, when we ask whether the era of American dominance is over, we should remember that power is not only measured by military or economic strength. It also comes from ideas, creativity, and the ability to inspire others. In technology and innovation, the United States continues to lead the world by example. And for English learners listening today, this is a reminder that learning new words like innovation, patent, and entrepreneurship can help you understand how progress happens, and how you can be part of it too.
Exactly, Julia. Innovation is not just an American story, it's a global language. Whether you're a student, teacher, or professional, understanding how creativity and knowledge shape our world can inspire you to learn, build, and dream big. So even as the world becomes more balanced and competitive, America's culture of innovation continues to shine as one of its strongest symbols of leadership. A reminder that progress is born from curiosity, courage, and the freedom to create. The United States has maintained one of the world's most powerful militaries for decades, giving it the ability to influence events far beyond its borders. Its presence in many countries, including Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, allows it to respond quickly to crises, support allies, and assist in humanitarian missions. Bases around the world help maintain international stability, not just through combat readiness, but also by delivering food, medicine, and shelter to people affected by natural disasters or conflicts, which shows the broader role of military power in peacekeeping.
Exactly, Adam. The US military is also deeply involved in international alliances, with NATO being one of the most important examples. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a group of countries committed to defending each other in case of attack. The United States contributes leadership, technology, and resources to support its partners. Beyond defense, NATO focuses on training, joint exercises, and humanitarian support. These operations demonstrate that global security involves cooperation, strategy, and preparation, rather than just using force, helping nations work together for peace.
Another important term for our listeners is global security, which refers to the safety and stability of countries and their people worldwide. The U.S. plays a major role in maintaining this security because of its advanced technology, intelligence networks, and diplomatic relationships. While the American military remains strong, other nations like China, India, and Russia are also increasing their military budgets and modernizing equipment. This does not mean immediate conflict, but it does indicate that the world is moving toward a multipolar defense system where no single nation holds complete influence over global security.
That's right, Adam. It's also essential to understand the humanitarian side of military power. The US participates in peacekeeping missions, provides disaster relief, and helps train soldiers in allied nations to ensure they can maintain safety and order. By offering these services, the American military demonstrates that security is not only about national defense, but also about assisting global communities. Such operations include responding to hurricanes, earthquakes, or food crises, and they provide an opportunity for soldiers to collaborate with international organizations and local governments to protect human lives.
Finally, it's important to notice how global defense strategies are evolving. While the U.S. continues to lead in military technology, other nations are expanding their capabilities, investing in cyber defense, advanced missiles, and modern aircraft. The rise of new military powers highlights the need for collaboration, treaties, and understanding between countries. English learners can benefit from this discussion by learning terms like peacekeeping, alliance, military base, global security, and defense strategy, which are commonly used in discussions about international relations and world affairs.
When we talk about global influence today, it's not just about military strength or economic power. Culture plays a huge role too. American movies, music, television shows, and even fashion styles have reached nearly every corner of the world. From Hollywood films to pop songs and streaming platforms, millions of people experience American ideas and values daily. This type of influence is called soft power, which means the ability to attract and persuade others without using force. Soft power shows how culture, creativity, and education can shape global opinions and trends.
That's a great point, Julia. Another example of American cultural influence is education. Every year, millions of students from countries around the world choose to study in U.S. universities like Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and Yale. These students gain knowledge, skills, and exposure to American values like creativity, critical thinking, and innovation. After graduation, many return to their home countries, bringing American ideas, methods, and experiences with them. This spread of knowledge is a type of cultural diplomacy, where education helps nations understand each other better while strengthening international ties.
Exactly, Adam. Language is another key part of American cultural influence. English, as spoken in the United States, has become a global language for business, science, technology, and entertainment. Movies, books, podcasts, and online content in English reach billions of people. Learning English often means learning about American culture at the same time. For English learners, understanding terms like influence, soft power, and cultural diplomacy is helpful because these words describe how ideas and culture can cross borders and shape the world in peaceful, educational, and creative ways.
Yes, Julia. Technology also plays a central role in cultural influence. Social media platforms, streaming services, and video games allow American culture to spread quickly. For example, trends from the United States can appear in Asia, Africa, or Europe within hours. Young people around the world often adopt fashion styles, music preferences, or even social habits seen in American content. Technology acts as a bridge, connecting people across countries and helping culture travel faster than ever. For learners, noticing these patterns can help understand both global trends and English vocabulary in real-life situations.
Another aspect is lifestyle and values. Concepts such as freedom of speech, creativity, entrepreneurship, and individual expression are often portrayed through American media and education systems. These ideals influence people's thinking, career choices, and social practices in many countries. Cultural exchange is not one way, however. International audiences interact, adapt, and mix ideas with their own traditions, creating a dynamic global culture. By understanding these interactions, English learners gain insight into both language and society while observing how culture shapes international relationships. It's also important to highlight the role of entertainment in American soft power. Hollywood movies, television series, and music festivals often portray ideas about friendship, courage, family, and justice. Even people who do not speak English fluently can understand these stories visually and emotionally. This helps spread American cultural ideals without requiring direct communication. The entertainment industry teaches English learners new words and phrases while showing how language, storytelling, and creativity are combined to influence global audiences. Finally, cultural influence connects all these elements: media, education, language, and lifestyle. The United States continues to lead in global culture not by force but by example, ideas, and creativity. Soft power allows America to build relationships, attract students, and share technology in ways that strengthen its global presence peacefully. For English learners, exploring these topics provides both language practice and understanding of international culture. Words like soft power, cultural diplomacy, and influence become easier to remember when learners see them in real-world examples of movies, music, and education.
So, in summary, American culture spreads through education, media, technology, and lifestyle, shaping global values and habits. This cultural power is different from military or economic strength because it attracts rather than compels. Millions of international students, viewers, and social media users are exposed to American ideas every day, creating a network of shared knowledge and global understanding. By learning these words and observing cultural trends, English learners can connect language with real-world global experiences, making their learning both practical and engaging. As we look ahead, Julia, one of the most important questions is what the future of global power will look like. For decades, the United States has been seen as the primary superpower, influencing trade, politics, technology, and culture across the world. But today, the situation is changing. Many experts believe that we are entering a multipolar world, where power is distributed among several nations rather than concentrated in one. This does not mean the end of America's influence, but rather a shift towards shared leadership. In a multipolar system, countries like China, India, Russia, the European Union, and even regional powers play significant roles in shaping the future.
That's right, Adam. A multipolar world does not have one single dominant power. Instead, influence is shared among multiple countries, each contributing to global decision-making. This concept can be observed in trade agreements, technological competition, and diplomatic relationships. For example, international treaties about climate change, cybersecurity, and public health often require collaboration between many nations, because no single country can solve these challenges alone. Understanding this idea is important for English learners, because terms like collaboration, balance of power, and global governance appear frequently in discussions about international affairs.
Exactly, Julia. Let's explore the idea of balance of power a bit more. This term refers to a situation in which no single country or alliance is strong enough to dominate the world entirely. Instead, power is distributed in a way that encourages stability and prevents conflicts. Historically, balance of power has been used to explain periods of peace or tension between nations. Today, we see it in economics, technology, military influence, and diplomacy. The United States continues to play a major role, but countries like China, Germany, Japan, and India also have significant influence, creating a system where cooperation and negotiation are essential.
Yes, Adam. Another term that is important for our listeners is global governance. Global governance refers to the systems, institutions, and rules that nations use to manage shared problems and challenges. Organizations such as the United Nations, World Health Organization, and World Trade Organization are examples of global governance structures. These organizations allow countries to cooperate, coordinate policies, and respond to crises together. In a multipolar world, strong global governance is essential because challenges like climate change, pandemics, and economic instability cannot be solved by one nation alone.
Absolutely, Julia. Collaboration is another key concept to understand. In the past, global competition often focused on dominance and rivalry, but today, collaboration is becoming more important than ever. Countries need to work together to tackle issues that cross borders. For example, climate change requires coordinated action on energy production, deforestation, and carbon emissions. No single country, even a powerful one like the United States, can address these problems alone. Collaboration allows nations to share knowledge, technology, and resources in order to achieve common goals that benefit everyone on the planet.
Exactly. And this shift towards shared responsibility also impacts trade and technology. In a multipolar system, international trade agreements are negotiated with multiple powerful nations in mind. Countries collaborate on technology standards, internet regulations, and artificial intelligence safety. Even in areas where competition remains strong, such as innovation and scientific research, collaboration allows countries to exchange ideas, train experts, and share resources. English learners can see how words like collaboration, partnership, and global strategy appear in discussions about future trends, making them practical vocabulary for both language and world affairs.
Another interesting aspect of a multipolar world is how it encourages adaptability and critical thinking. Nations must anticipate changes, understand diverse perspectives, and negotiate complex agreements. For individuals, including English learners, this is a lesson in problem-solving and global awareness. Understanding how multiple countries share power, cooperate, and sometimes compete gives people the tools to analyze news, participate in discussions, and think critically about the world. This approach emphasizes learning from real-world examples and applying new vocabulary in meaningful contexts.
Yes, Adam. It is also important to note that multipolarity does not mean chaos or conflict. While there may be differences in national interests, a balanced system encourages dialogue, compromise, and shared responsibility. For example, international responses to humanitarian crises, environmental disasters, and health emergencies often involve multiple countries acting together. This collective approach can lead to more sustainable solutions and stronger global networks. By understanding these dynamics, English learners not only expand their vocabulary, but also learn how cooperation is central to solving global challenges.
Exactly. Let's also talk about the role of technology in shaping a multipolar future. Technology connects nations, making collaboration faster and more efficient. Global communication networks, cloud computing, and online education platforms allow countries to share knowledge instantly. Scientific research on medicine, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence often involves international teams. In a world where power is shared, technological cooperation helps solve problems that affect everyone. Learning about these developments can also introduce English learners to terms like innovation, digital collaboration, and international research.
Another dimension is culture and soft power. In a multipolar world, cultural exchange allows nations to influence each other peacefully. Movies, music, literature, and educational programs spread ideas and values globally. Countries that invest in cultural diplomacy can attract students, tourists, and businesses, strengthening their influence without military or economic pressure. This shows that power is not only about force or money, but also about ideas, creativity, and global engagement. English learners can see how words like soft power and cultural diplomacy relate to real-world events and international relations.
And when we think about the future, global challenges like climate change, health crises, and cybersecurity require cooperation between multiple powerful nations. A multipolar world encourages countries to share responsibility rather than compete destructively. It also emphasizes negotiation, diplomacy, and consensus building. By observing how nations work together to address shared problems, learners can understand the importance of teamwork, strategic thinking, and mutual respect in international relations. These skills are valuable not only in politics, but also in business, education, and personal life.
Yes, Adam. To summarize this discussion, the future seems to be moving toward a multipolar system where several countries share influence in trade, politics, technology, and culture. Collaboration, balance of power, and global governance are key concepts that help explain how nations can work together to solve complex challenges. This system is not about replacing one superpower with another. It is about creating a more interconnected, cooperative, and resilient world. For English learners, understanding these ideas provides practical vocabulary and insight into global trends.
Exactly, Julia. By studying the multipolar world, learners can connect language with real-life situations, analyze news and events critically, and explore the relationships between countries in a global context. Understanding collaboration, balance of power, and global governance helps students not only improve English, but also develop global awareness. This knowledge encourages curiosity, empathy, and informed thinking, which are essential skills for the 21st century. As the world becomes more interconnected, learning about these dynamics prepares individuals to participate meaningfully in international discussions and global problem-solving.
Finally, Adam, the multipolar future reminds us that no single country has all the answers. Global challenges are shared, and so are opportunities. Countries that learn to cooperate, respect each other's perspectives, and invest in knowledge and technology will thrive. English learners can see that understanding global systems is not just about vocabulary or grammar. It's about thinking critically, observing trends, and connecting language to the real world. A multipolar world may be more complex, but it is also richer, more diverse, and filled with possibilities for collaboration, learning, and positive change. As we reach the final part of our discussion, Adam, it is important to reflect on what English learners can take away from exploring global power shifts. Understanding the history of international relations, economic developments, technological leadership, and cultural influence helps students see the bigger picture of how the world functions today. By studying these topics, learners gain insight into why countries cooperate or compete, how policies are formed, and how decisions in one part of the world can affect people everywhere. This perspective encourages critical thinking and awareness, which are essential skills for global citizens. As we reach the final part of our discussion, Adam, it is important to reflect on what English learners can take away from exploring global power shifts. Understanding the history of international relations, economic developments, technological leadership, and cultural influence helps students see the bigger picture of how the world functions today. By studying these topics, learners gain insight into why countries cooperate or compete, how policies are formed, and how decisions in one part of the world can affect people everywhere. This perspective encourages critical thinking and awareness, which are essential skills for global citizens.
Absolutely, Julia. For students learning English, connecting language with real-world topics makes learning much more meaningful. When you read about international news in English, watch documentaries, or follow global trends, you not only improve vocabulary, but also understand context, expressions, and cultural nuances. Words like collaboration, soft power, innovation, and balance of power become more than vocabulary. They become tools to analyze and discuss real-world events. This approach allows learners to develop both language skills and a deeper understanding of global issues simultaneously.
That's a great point, Adam. Another important lesson is the value of history in understanding current events. By looking at past alliances, conflicts, and economic trends, students can see patterns that help explain today's world. History also shows that change is constant, whether it is in technology, economics, culture, or politics. Understanding these patterns allows learners to anticipate challenges, think strategically, and make informed decisions. For English learners, reading historical texts or simplified news in English also helps improve comprehension, sentence structure understanding, and critical thinking skills, which are crucial for lifelong learning.
Yes, Julia, and I would like to add that practicing English while engaging with global news encourages curiosity and independent learning. When students read articles, watch videos, or listen to podcasts about world affairs, they naturally encounter new words, phrases, and sentence structures. Writing summaries, discussing topics with friends, or reflecting on what they learn helps reinforce these skills. This type of active engagement transforms English learning from memorizing lists of words to understanding concepts and ideas, giving students the to express their opinions clearly and participate meaningfully in international conversations.
Exactly, Adam. Another key takeaway is understanding the importance of cooperation in global challenges. Studying topics like climate change, trade agreements, and international diplomacy highlights that no country can solve major problems alone. Countries must collaborate, share knowledge, and make collective decisions. This principle of collaboration applies to English learners as well. By practicing English with peers, teachers, or online communities, students learn not only language skills, but also teamwork, communication, and problem-solving abilities, all of which are essential in today's interconnected world.
And it is also important for students to remember that global understanding promotes peace and tolerance. Learning about different countries, cultures, and systems helps break down stereotypes and encourages empathy. When English learners study international news, history, and cultural trends, they begin to see the world from multiple perspectives. This broad understanding develops critical thinking and allows students to evaluate information objectively. It also emphasizes the importance of dialogue and respect, showing that learning a language is not only about communication, but also about connecting with people globally.
Yes, Adam. We should also encourage students to make English learning a part of their daily routine. Reading newspapers, watching educational videos, or listening to podcasts in English helps improve listening, comprehension, and vocabulary naturally. English learners can start with topics they enjoy, such as science, technology, history, or global affairs, and gradually expand to more complex subjects. By engaging with real-world content, students practice reading, listening, and thinking in English, which accelerates learning while keeping it interesting and relevant.
Another practical tip is to reflect on what you read or hear in English. After reading an article about trade, technology, or culture, try summarizing it in your own words or discussing it with friends. This exercise strengthens understanding, memory, and vocabulary usage. It also helps learners connect English language practice with global awareness. Over time, students can start noticing patterns, forming opinions, and even predicting possible future developments in global affairs. This approach builds both language fluency and critical thinking skills, which are essential for becoming informed global citizens.
Exactly. Learning English in the context of global affairs also teaches patience and consistency. Understanding complex issues like international politics, economic shifts, or technological developments takes time. Students must read, listen, and review regularly. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and over time, learners develop confidence in both their language skills and their ability to understand the world. This combination of knowledge and language fluency prepares students for further studies, professional opportunities, and meaningful participation in international discussions.
Finally, it's inspiring to realize that studying global power, culture, and cooperation gives learners a sense of connection to the world. English becomes a tool not only for communication, but also for exploration, understanding, and personal growth. By observing how countries work together to solve challenges, students learn lessons about collaboration, patience, creativity, and problem-solving. They also see that their own actions, thoughts, and learning can contribute to a better, more informed global community. English learning and global awareness go hand in hand, shaping students into thoughtful, responsible, and engaged citizens.
So, as we conclude this podcast, Adam, the key message for our listeners is clear. Learning English while studying global affairs strengthens your mind, expands your vocabulary, and enhances your understanding of the world. It teaches history, politics, economics, culture, and collaboration, all in one. By reading, listening, and reflecting, students gain knowledge and skills that last a lifetime. Most importantly, it encourages curiosity, empathy, and open-mindedness, qualities that help learners participate in a peaceful, interconnected, and educated global society.
Yes, Julia. To sum up, English learners can take many lessons from studying global power shifts, understand history, practice language through real-world news, explore international cooperation, and think critically about future challenges. Learning English in this context is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It is about connecting with ideas, cultures, and people worldwide. By combining language learning with global awareness, students prepare themselves to be thoughtful, informed, and active participants in a changing world.
We hope that this discussion has inspired our listeners to continue exploring English and global affairs together. Remember, every article you read, every video you watch, and every conversation you participate in is a step toward becoming a more knowledgeable, fluent, and globally aware individual. The world is vast, diverse, and full of opportunities to learn. English is your key to understanding it, sharing your ideas, and contributing positively to international dialogue.
And on that positive note, we encourage all our listeners to keep learning, stay curious, and engage with the world thoughtfully. Whether it is reading international news, exploring cultural content, or practicing new vocabulary, every effort counts. Understanding global shifts helps you see connections, make informed decisions, and appreciate the complexity of the world. English learning, combined with global awareness, opens doors to personal growth, professional opportunities, and meaningful participation in international discussions.
Thank you so much for listening, dear students and global citizens. Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember that language and knowledge together can change your life. Practice regularly, stay curious about the world, and think critically about what you read and hear. By connecting English learning with global awareness, you are not only improving your language skills, but also preparing yourself to be a thoughtful, engaged, and responsible citizen in our interconnected world.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it educational, inspiring, and helpful for your English learning journey. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the English Globe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what you learned, what topics interest you, and how you plan to use English to explore global affairs. Together, we can continue learning, growing, and understanding our world in meaningful and positive ways.
Thank you, everyone. Stay curious, keep practicing English, and always look at the world with an open mind. By combining language learning with global knowledge, you have the power to understand, connect, and contribute positively to the world around you. Learning English is not just about communication. It is about growth, awareness, and making a difference.